For a limited time only, support Richtofen and Dr. Monty as they make a run for the presidency by getting your own campaign gear. A link is down below. Over the past few days, I've received a lot of questions asking me about links between Zombies in Spaceland, Kino Der Toten, and the Legend of Faust. A lot of them came after yesterday's video, so I thought I would make a follow-up video discussing my opinions on the links between Zombies in Spaceland and Kino Der Toten. What we need to do is look at the character Mephistopheles. Within the projector's room of Zombies in Spaceland, there's a language written on the floor, and when you translate this language, you receive the message, Mephistopheles grants your innermost desires, death is merely the beginning, serve thy master. This was a pretty interesting quote. It gets into a lot of the thematic things going on within Zombies in Spaceland. You can see the influence, you can see where we might be going, and you can also start to draw parallels. For example, one may suggest that Mephistopheles could symbolize Willard Wyler, or maybe Willard Wyler is the devil in this situation. And what a lot of people did was, after I mentioned that Mephistopheles comes from the Legend of Faust, they looked at Kino Der Toten because Kino Der Toten features many different posters on the wall. One of them includes a poster for either a play or a film adaptation of the Legend of Faust. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the plays found within Kino Der Toten, and maybe we can get a better understanding of their purpose and whether or not they might connect to Zombies in Spaceland in any way. With this being a German theater, it would make sense that the plays found within the theater are German related. So the first play we see is Die Bismarck, and because we see a ship in the background, we can assume it's not about Otto von Bismarck, rather the ship known as the Bismarck, which was a German warship during the Second World War. Now, this ship was sunken by the British Navy, so perhaps this is a story of the sinking of the Bismarck or the Bismarck in battle. We're not exactly sure. This doesn't correlate to a specific play or film, rather it correlates to Nazi history, which would make sense in a Nazi theater. We then have the Pygmalion, and this is a reference to a famous German film from 1935, which also fits the Nazi era. The last film, or play perhaps, is Faust. Faust is thematically fitting to the zombie storyline when you consider it centers around the devil and making deals with the devil. For a while within the zombie storyline, we thought there might be a greater force involved, much like the devil. Perhaps it was related to the voices in Richtofen's head. Now, as the zombie storyline went on, it ended up taking a different path. So, unfortunately, the devil never actually appears in Zombies. But what's going on with this poster? Let's jump into this a little bit more because it's important to have an understanding of the story of Faust. So understand that Faust and the Legend of Faust is a German legend that dates back to around the 16th century. Nobody's quite sure of the origins. The idea, though, is that Faust is a scholar who wants more. He's a bit greedy and he's dissatisfied with his current life. He wants to gain all the knowledge in the world, and he wants to have all of the humanly desires at his disposal. Many things that one might consider a sin. Things like gluttony. And Mephistopheles comes along and he offers all of these things to Faust, and all he has to do in exchange is sign a deal with the devil and basically give away his soul. Now, about 200 years later, a German author known as Goethe adapts this story and creates the story known as Faust, a Tragedy Part 1 and 2. This is an incredibly influential piece of German literature. Faust had been adapted and written before into many plays, stories, and poems. However, this was the first one to be widely published and hit the mainstream. Some people consider it one of the most important pieces in German literature. So, if there was any story to be found within Kino Der Toten, Faust is the perfect thing to put in there. So, when I see a poster like Faust within Kino Der Toten, I see it as a very important and influential piece of German literature, which has been adapted into many plays and films, and it's only fitting to be in a map like this. And if you want to go into the writing within Faust, what it says is the Duke of Parma, Faust, who is the scholar, Gretchen, who is the woman who Faust desires, Erzengel, which is a archangel, and Mephistophos, which is a shortening of the word Mephistopheles. So the writing on there isn't that significant. I believe with the addition of Gretchen on the poster, it actually relates to Goethe's Faust, not actually the original tale. So I believe they are referencing Goethe's work here. So that was enough rambling about Kino Der Toten and its posters. Let's jump back to Zombies in Spaceland and see if there actually is a connection between Faust, these posters, and the new map. When we translate the language found in the projector's room, it does reference Mephistopheles, and maybe this does create a link because Mephistopheles is from the Legend of Faust, and Faust was featured in Kino Der Toten. However, I don't actually believe that's the case. You see, within Zombies in Spaceland, there is a lot to uncover. However, one thing we can understand is that Willard Wyler seems to be using some form of darker magic, and he also is manipulating these people. What if Willard Wyler was a symbol for Mephistopheles, or perhaps quite literally Mephistopheles, and in luring people in to make pacts with the devil, he creates these worlds, and that's what he's trying to do with our characters in this map. Or maybe he is actually serving the devil because of a deal he made with Mephistopheles. Essentially, the idea that Willard Wyler is an underling to Mephistopheles, who is an underling to the devil. Either way, what I believe is going on when Infinity Ward includes all of these references to things like Mephistopheles, they're trying to include the devil and this idea of hell and a darker evil or force lurking beyond everything going on. Things aren't supposed to be as surface as they seem. And I honestly think that we cannot connect the Zombies in Spaceland world with the Treyarch Zombies world. Sure, you can look at the many worlds universe and say that they are connected just because they are some random off the beaten path universe that maybe we're just unable to get to. However, that's just silly and drawing connections to nothing. We can look at them as two independent storylines, and until I see Richtofen actually in a Willard Wyler production, there's no way I would say they are connected. From everything we've learned so far during the development cycle of Zombies in Spaceland, they are two separate stories, and this is a brand new narrative. And when they include things like Mephistopheles and Faust and Goethe, what they're trying to do is show their influences and give hints at where things might be going, and also leave people to theorize and maybe draw connections between how our characters behave in the story and how characters in legends, such as the ones that Mephistopheles belongs in, behave. That's what's going on here. I personally don't believe there is any connection between Kino Der Toten, our Zombies universe, and Zombies in Spaceland. Now, one more brief tangent, because I know if I don't mention it, people are going to point this out to me just like they did when I neglected to mention the Faust poster in Kino Der Toten. Yes, the Pack-a-Punch system works very much like the Pack-a-Punch system in Kino Der Toten. You teleport in, you're there for 30 seconds inside the projector's room, you Pack-a-Punch, and then you leave. One, it just might be a coincidence, and two, it just might be them paying homage to Kino Der Toten. That's honestly what I think about it. I don't think we're supposed to look at it and say we're actually in the cartoon version of Kino Der Toten, or we're in the Zombies in Spaceland version of Kino Der Toten, as if there's an alternate version of Kino Der Toten somewhere else. No, I think this is literally just the projector's room from the Zombies in Spaceland intro, and I wouldn't look at it too further. Sure, they seem very similar and they function almost identically, but I don't think that's actually what they're trying to do. I don't think they're suggesting that they're the same place. If anything, they're just paying homage to previous Zombies maps, and it would make sense that a very thematic Zombies universe would pay homage to a map such as Kino Der Toten, which did a lot to really lay down the groundwork of the Zombies storyline. That's going to wrap things up for this video. I probably rambled way too long about a number of these topics, but I thought I would make this very clear that they are most likely not related, since I've had so many people mention it to me over the past few days. I'm going to go though, have a wonderful day, and bye.